I connect with USC here in Los Angeles, and I have a real estate program there. We bring real estate developers from Brazil to USC every year to talk about real estate market and opportunities. And this is what I've been doing. Alex, you want to introduce yourself before we start?
So I'm Alex Olson. I've lived out here in LA for about 7 years, come with a background in finance. So I started on a trading desk in New York for about 5 years and joined a family office out here in LA to do the same thing for them and transition from the public to the private space, and made some acquisitions, IPOs with this family office. But growing up, I had worked construction every summer, and it was something I was still passionate about. So when I had an opportunity to pivot from finance and into development, I took that opportunity. I went back to USC, got my master's in construction management, was put in touch with Rafael through a friend that said, you guys are talking about the same stuff and can kind of fill in for each other, a very complementary relationship with his knowledge in actually building and developing, and my background and partnerships with lenders in the space, and just knowledge of finance and spending days on end buried in spreadsheets. So Rafael and I partnered and created HO9 Development.
Okay. Before we talk about SB9, it's important to understand what is an ADU, okay? Because SB9 is an evolution of SB1069, which is the ADU law that started in 2017. Before I start, I'm just want to go ahead and check. Everybody knows what is an ADU here in the table? Everybody is aware of what's going on? Okay.
Which would not have been the case how many years ago? I'm saying,
Yes,
it's all
yes.
still...
I remember doing a lot of workshops in the beginning of 2018, and one of them, my wife went with me, and when I finished the presentation, she looked at me and said, how are you going to sell this if nobody knows what it's all about? And I said, we have to be persistent. And a few years later, the phone rings like every day about, how can I do this, how can I do that? So the reason I'm sharing this with you, it's basically everything that happened with the ADU laws is going to repeat with SB9 law. Please.
Clarify, please. ADU's annex dwelling unit?
Accessory dwelling unit.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, it's a backyard house. It's an independent house that you create a different address with a different independent access. Can be from 150 to 150 square foot to 1200. But if you go up to 800, you'll be benefit with shorter side setbacks and rear setbacks. There's a specific size that you can be benefit with smaller, shorter setbacks. But basically, if you go above 800, you have to follow the local development standards, which can be variable based on each city. But if you go up to 100, the state law will say that you can be 4 rear, 4 side, and you have to be 10 feet from the existing structure.
Now, this can go on top of a garage, right?
Yes, ADUs can be above garage, can be attached to the house, detached, separate, basement, which is not the case here in California due to the soil and earthquakes. It's not common to have basement here, but yes, you can do it. And garage conversions. That was the most popular types of ADUs. There's one important thing is they call junior ADU. if you can convert existing space in a house into a, they call junior ADU. The criteria is up to 500, cannot be more than 500, and must be existing space in a house attached to the house. For example, a garage, a detached garage, you can transform into a junior ADU, you can transform into an ADU. What's the difference? Because if you do a junior ADU, you still can build an ADU and have 3 units in a property, not two independent, you have 3 under the SB1069 ADU laws. Again, we're not talking about SB9 yet, and it's very important for you to understand how this all started. Long story short, this is and I think it's very important, this is a law that came from the people. Like Uber, for example, there was a real necessity of having different types of transportation. And remember when people were discussing about if Uber is gonna work, how it's gonna do, there's questions about how the efficiency of the service and if people will like it or not. And I think it's gonna work with the same thing. And the reason I'm saying this is because the government saw 350,000 illegal ADUs in the city of Los Angeles. that was there. People were building the houses in their backyard because they need the income.
Or converting their garage.
Or converting the garage. So it's not something that the government create based on what they think it's going to be good for people. People actually were doing it. So the government just facilitate the process in order to this bill, the law increase and be better for everybody. So go ahead.
ADUs, is that just for owner occupied?
Excuse
The
me?
junior ADUs, is that just owner occupied?
Exactly. It's a good point. If you do a third unit under the SB 1069, if you do a third unit like a junior ADU, you must occupy or the junior ADU or the ADU or the primary house. That's you cannot rent the 3 units in the property.
Do you
If
know if
do
there's
the
a
third.
time limit, like, you have to live there for 5 years, 10 years, or?
No, for the SB 1069, no. For SB9, we're gonna talk later. You have 3-year owner occupancy for the lot split, okay? But not for, again, we're talking about the ADUs only, not the SB9. Thank you for bringing that. It's very, very important.
So the ADUs can be a rental property we have already and turn it into 2 units?
If you occupy one of the 3, yes.
But you have to occupy,
One of the 3, if you do 3. If you do 2,
yeah.
no, you don't have to occupy.
Oh.
That's the rule.
So you mentioned that there's 360,000 illegal build. Does that mean now we can make those illegal build to be legal?
Yes, you can, but there's a challenge for doing that because when you legalize, you have to go to the planning department and you have to go to the building department.
Permit.
Yes, for the building department, for the planning department, it's gonna be fine. They ask you just the small things to do it, and you do it, it's fine. The problem is to put the building up to building code, because most of the illegal units didn't follow the codes for construction. So when you bring that, it may cost you more than you expected. So you have to make sure how much money you invest to bring up to code and legalize the unit. I'll give you a small example.
Sometimes costs more
Yeah.
to bring it up to code than starting it from scratch.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
demo and start from scratch. And because most of the garage conversions, you transform a non-livable space into a livable space.
Right.
Because you're building a unit for people rent or live there. By doing this, you change the code completely. You have to do a lot of things that you don't have to do for a garage. Reinforcement and that's so. If you're willing to do that, I advise you to go to the city and check planning and building. And I'll tell you, the building will be the challenge. Okay.
And they all have to be separately metered, right? They have to have a separate water meter,
It's a
separate-
good question because in the beginning it was an optional thing. You can choose to do it. Most of my clients choose to do because it's easier to charge for the tenants a separate bill because you have a separate house with a separate meter. Everything is
They
easier.
don't have to worry about billing.
Yes,
You know,
but now some cities don't require that, it's an optional.
Oh, really?
And I know that my electrician, the company that work with me, they have now this digital meter that you put in a sub panel without having a separate meter, just to measure the amount of energy of that sub panel.
I see.
So it's cheaper. If you don't separate water, electricity, gas, it'll be less for cost for the construction. But again, you have to share all the bills and organize that.
Probably, I'm gonna tell you, there probably is no incentive to bring it up to code unless they're gonna sell the property because they'll be paying higher taxes. And I'm just thinking a lot of people are not gonna bring it up to code until they sell and then they find that there's so many things that they have to either get rid of, change it, and then know they're gonna be taxed on all that.
Yeah.
That's my thought, my guess.
Yeah, no, I agree, and a lot of the things that because again, when I saw the opportunity of this law, I created a business called Plus Home to help the homeowners to build because this law worked because it comes from an individual. A single person goes there and build a house. There's no public hearings, there's no bureaucracy. Most of the housing policies fail because it's big developments, a lot of hearings, takes time, against this, against that. So it takes time to bring this, it's a long process. But the ADUs start to grow fast because it comes from a single person. When I create the business, I create to help these individuals to build the houses. So the question you did, there's a lot of opportunities for appraisers, something that I'd like to bring to this land investment group, because like I did in the past to create a business to help them, there's a lot of questions like that if you focus on and you can do something different because things are changing. It's definitely a game changer. So, for example, we talk about lot split. What's the appraiser of the two different lots? And the lender give you money to buy the I don't want to, go to your part, but the lender will give money. A collateral is one property, and then you split it in two. How's going to be the mortgage for the other? So there's a lot of unanswered, can I say that, unanswered questions that depending on how you focus the work, there's opportunities for everybody. So
I think the whole piece with ADUs and the value of ADUs, it's still, you can talk to different appraisers and get a different idea how much value is it actually providing to the house. I think the realist way to look at it is, especially some of your clients that have turned it into an investment property and actually looking at that cash on cash return, that's a huge point. Or multi-generational living that it's created.
Yeah.
So I think appraisers are still digesting some of this and trying to put a value on if you have a 1,500 square foot single family main house and you have an 800 square foot ADU, how much value is that really adding to the house?
Just to give you an idea, a guy that convert the garage into a unit. The appraiser goes to the property, say, oh, the house is worth blah, 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 and the garage is $50,000, for example. And the guy put like 150, 200,000 to transform the garage into a nice house. And the appraisal is 50 and he spent 150, 200. This was 2 years ago. They valued the garage as a garage, not an ADU. Now, 2 years later, I know that some guys are like a 90% of the value of the square footage of the house is to the accessory value unit, or 95, depending on the area. The appraisers are changing the way to value the. So these things, all those things are changing fast.
Isn't part of the law, once you add an ADU, they don't reappraise your property as far as property taxes go?
Reassessment, Prop 13?
Yeah, reassess.
No, they do. That's a myth. They will reassess your property.
Yeah.
They will reassess
Yeah.
when you add an ADU?
Yeah, and an appraiser can't add value to an ADU unless it's permanent. So all those people that have unpermanent ADUs, they're not gonna get value if it's not permanent.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jessica.
And
Yeah.
other question, when you have illegal and not converting, the biggest challenge will be insurance. Anything happen, insurance will not cover anything illegals.
I wonder,
illegal.
you know,
Illegal.
a lot of cultures, and including my culture, they do things just the way they want to do it. It's inexpensive, it's quick, and you know they get, you know, who they rent it or whatever they do. To get that mind change, is that quite a challenge? Because some cultures may just say, hey, we just do the things we want, we own the house. No one's gonna tell us or direct us what to do, or make any changes. And then if they sell it, then of course those are the challenges later.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, to get their mindset changed, to pay, like you said, the permits and all the time and the cost, are they gonna do it, or are they gonna just say, no, we'll spend $10,000, we'll fix it, and that's the way it goes? I mean, it's a challenge, it's gotta be a challenge.
Yeah. I remember,
I was gonna say, and that's been, you know, made an offer on a property just 2 weeks ago, and that's you know, a challenge we've dealt with. Is,
Yeah.
you know, a home, it's got this second unit on it, and digging through, you know, going through LADBS, seeing, well, we don't see permits online. Here's what we see, and taking up, you know, a lot of time for us to investigate, well, are there actually, you know, approved permits for this unit, you know, before we want to make a full offer on it. And being told, yes, it is, well, they're a contractor. And so I think any situation you're in where you're looking to purchase a property and there's questions around that, you have to be super clear and get, you know, have the LADBS sign off.
I've noticed realtors, I mean, I've looked at property where they'll say it's a home, it's a 4-bedroom. And I looked at the flooring and I'm thinking, it's not a 4-bedroom. What they did was, you see the kitchen floor and the bedroom floor as the same floor, and all they did was put a wall. And the realtor, why didn't the realtor know this? And I went to the plan, you know, I went to the permit, and they said, no, it's a 3-bedroom. And unless it's got a closet, you know, obviously it's not a bedroom. But there's so many things, even the realtors, I don't know where their mindset is, because they just say, okay, it's for, you know, it's for. They're not looking at, hey, let's pull out the permits, is that really a 4th bedroom? They're just going by what the seller is saying, it's a 4-bedroom, and they list it, and I was a little suspicious, so I went and checked myself, and I thought this realtor didn't do due diligence at all. They just put it on the market, make their money, and gone.
Till they get sued.
yeah.
Yeah, but if they get caught.
Well, I think there's also this you know, kind of learning curve, and we view part of our job is also educating. And I know Raphael just last week or 2 weeks ago spoke with a group of realtors to explain the importance of some of these things. So with anything, I think it'll take time before people are informed and can. A lot of times you're just relying on the homeowner's word, and especially in a space like this, when you're talking about permits, it can get you in trouble.
Well,
You want to say something?
on your on the comment just have in MLS right now, realtor, we have 2 choices. Actually, a couple of options. One option is we pull the data directly from the county assessor office, and the other option is we go by whatever client says, but it shows when we put in our data. I don't know from consumer side, would you guys see that, but there is an option, And usually you should be able to find that data is from the county assessor office or from the realtors.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a 40-year-old house that was built to a different set of code, and you discover there's an ADU, or you wanna do an ADU, do you have to bring the whole property up to code, or just build the
No,
to the current code?
Good question.
When you apply for a permit for ADU, the city and the inspectors only look at what you apply for.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Even I have examples that this above garage unit, my client wants to, because we had to basically not demo the garage, but to put a lot of footings, because we're putting a unit on top of it.
For the
We damaged the garage and basically we rebuilt the new garage, and the guy add a room here and put a condenser. The inspector never paying attention to that. They just focus on
The new part.
the plans, the ADUs, and the infrastructure around it. Normally they do that.
And what is the city of Los Angeles doing about these 350,000 illegal ADUs? Are they going after them, or making them bring it up to code, or giving them some time?
They encourage, as far as I know, they encourage people to legalize that.
Encourage them, they
Yeah,
don't fine
yeah,
them,
yeah,
or?
yeah. No, I'm sharing with you that it looks easier. Just go there, apply, pay, and that's it. But just it's not the case. Sometimes it worked to demo, like Alex said, and redo it.
One more question.
No, go ahead.
Let's say I want to add an ADU and then sell it. I mean, that's my overall plan, but I don't have the money for the ADU. You talk about finance, is there a way to, let's say I've got a buyer and I'm ready to go to escrow, but the ADU's not finished and not paid for. Can I have that taken out of my proceeds from my escrow? Can you see that happening, or some kind of a bridge loan?
I'm not the expert on that field, but I can see that happen for sure.
Yeah.
And if I were you doing this, I would permit the ADU
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
before building.
Sure.
Invest a little bit of money to have the plans ready and sell the package.
So,
Like, oh, this is
Yeah,
the
that's
house,
better.
this is ADU, it's permit, you can start construction right away, or get a loan with that, and
maybe a bridge loan, one of the members, I know.
sell the
there's members that
potential,
make
the
a hard
potential
money.
of the new unit,
Yeah. there
Potential
you go.
income. Yeah.
potential
Perfect.
income.
I think that also brings up a good point about, what things Rafael has done for his clients, building this guest house, this ADU, whether it's an income property or multi-generational living. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of your clients have asked you, okay, built this for me, I like this, can I sell it independently of my house? Can I sell just the ADU? And
Yeah.
maybe you can talk a little bit.
No, that's how we connect the two laws.
Yeah.
Because when I was building ADU for my clients, I had two questions for all of them, no exception. The first question, can I sell the unit separately? And the answer was no. As a developer, hurts myself to say no, but no. And the second question was, can I rent both units? And the answer was no, because in the ADU laws, you have to occupy one to rent the other one. But out of a sudden, government Nissan hear my prayers, and they create the SB9 law, which is the next chapter of this. Basically, SB9 allows you to split the lot and sell separately.
Yeah.
Basically, it's some kind of what we just talked about.
They would issue a separate APN number?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you technically can do that. And the second question is under SB9, Alex will explain better, but we have two approaches. Split the lot or a 2-unit development. A 2-unit development, you don't split the lot and you don't have owner occupancy. The lot split you do have. So now you can add units 3 without having the owner occupancy under SB9 law. again, I'll let Alex go ahead with that. But when Governor Newsom signed the bill in September, and he almost lost the election,
Yeah.
I was praying for, because he was ready to sign the bill, and he got elected. He kept the job. The next day he signed SB9. Next day.
And then I got multiple calls from Raphael saying, hey, let's do
No,
this, let's get
no,
it.
and then, okay, this is real. I have to create a development part of my business to continue that, because this is gonna be huge. And then our friend introduced us, and we connect in January. And we're, since January, meeting every Thursday, building this business and try to make it happen for SB9. That's how, and my part, and I let you, Alex, go ahead.
These are almost like a,
Regarding the SB9 and the ADU, there's a lot of houses, most properties have one driveway.
yeah.
How do you basically access the the ADU if basically there's only one driveway? Do you have parking restrictions?
Yes, you do. For ADUs again, and it's extend to SB9. If you build ADUs on the lots, and Alex will explain that, you have a 0.5 mile distance from public transportation. So when you submit your plans to the city, you have to show them, oh, my property is 0.5 mile from a public transportation. Public transportation means a bus stop. And then you show in the site plan, the first page of your package, you show that you're 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, and you don't have to add garage to your units you're adding.
Or parking.
Parking.
That's the high density, that's the high density exclusion.
So they can park on the street?
Yeah.
I think one important thing on the parking is, a lot of people are using the ZMIS, the new SB9 eligibility, click into it, look through and see all these yes, no boxes for does this qualify. I think, and we heard back from the city, but that's one of the areas that form can still be wrong. I'm saying a lot of times it'll say, is it within 0.5 mile? No. We've seen cases where it is, and going back to the city and confirming it. So I think they're working on that SB9 eligibility tool, the button on there to click for any APN you put in, but it's still a work in progress. So don't always trust that.
One last thing, very important. ADUs are here for over 6 years, and I follow everything since the beginning. And I remember to go into city counters in the beginning, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And
They're against it.
Against it.
Yeah.
And then I had to, I was forced to learn that the housing policy is made by the state, and the city needs to provide a certain number of housing for the state. Some cities, all of them are behind. They have to do more what they're doing. The cities that are far behind are the ones that ADU friendly. Let's put it that way. The other cities will be more restricted. Until the two amendment bills that the government create, just to fight against these pushbacks. What the state did, they threatened the cities with lawsuits and say, if you don't adopt the state law to the city code, what's going to happen? The state rule will be enforced to the city. So the city had to run to discuss how they're going to adopt the state law to their city. And after that, the city, when you ask about ADU, they hug you, this is the brochure, you do this and that. No, I'm telling the truth, this was what happened. Again, there are cities more friendly than others, but now they're prepared for that. They're waiting they have brochure, they have information, they have everything. The reason I bring this to you is, I think it's gonna happen the same thing with SB9. same thing. There's a lot of questions, do and don'ts, I don't know.
Lawsuits by cities.
Lawsuits by cities. But the end of the day, I think it's gonna be the sequel of the first movie.
One of our sponsors, John Lasalek of Haven Exchange, used to live in Huntington Beach, and he's since moved to Arizona. But when he was living in Huntington Beach and that law was passed, he said Huntington Beach is not gonna adopt the state provision for housing. They're gonna sue the state. Well, guess what? They lost.
Right. My first
Also,
ADU was in Huntington Beach.
Yes, and he was adamant. He said, they're not gonna allow all this high density, they're not gonna allow all this affordable housing in Huntington Beach, and they lost.
There was a case on 60 Minutes about Redondo Beach. Same thing, they were behind by 2,500 units. And the guy who owns a refinery there, he shut down and he proposed that he would put 500 units in there. It's right on the water and everything. He would put so many low income and all that. City fought him all the way. He actually sued the city, and the state joined him
Wow.
in that lawsuit. And they, sure enough, they lost the lawsuit, and now they're, like you said, hey, here's the brochure, and we're ready. Hey, the mayor said, oh, we were never against it anyway.
Yeah, and the two new bills that the government just signed for next January. One is about enforce the city to 60-day approval.
Application approval, yeah.
Approval, because they're not doing. I have several projects
Yeah.
under different cities here in Orange County, and they're taking forever to approve. And now they said you have to. And the second one is related to the front setback. I don't know exactly how much they are granting the homeowners, but I think it's not more 20 or 25 feet setback in the front. So again, remember Uber? We're talking about what's happening, blah blah blah. All the pushbacks now exist, they're legit, but the necessity was gonna force us to go that. As developers, we believe that you have to listen to neighborhoods in order to add the housing. We don't wanna, like they say, put pink houses, because we're talking about add value to the properties. We don't wanna, let's put a lot of house here, and then you look at the neighborhood, there's a huge, nice residential house. It's not the point. So I think if we have common sense and be reasonable, you can add housing without hurting the community. That's what.
Maybe Alex can explain the lot splitting part, because.
Yeah, let's go. I miss my professor. I don't stop talking. I have to.
What about the lot splitting part?
Yeah, so like he's saying, when people have the ADUs, they're saying, can we sell it separately? What they've done is, SB9, when it was signed, there's two parts to SB9. And this is a part to be super clear on, because I think people hear SB9 and they just think higher density, more units. But it is clear. There's a 2-unit development option that falls under SB9, and there's an urban lot split that falls under SB9. There's provisions that apply to both of these. They're similar for the most part. There's just a few additional requirements for when you're doing an urban lot split, which I think Rafael mentioned, like the 3-year owner occupancy. That's a big one and you can imagine that any owner occupancy is keeping, developers from, especially big institutional developers. This is kind of small scale developers that would be able to do something like that. But the 2-unit development, so not the split yet, but the 2-unit development is now granting access to build a second, residential unit. So I'm saying 2 single-family homes on 1 lot. In some cases, and so that's all within the same APN. In some cases, depending on local objective standards, you can also add an ADU and a junior ADU. So there's cases that a single family without the lot split, still just focused on the 2-unit development, can actually be converted from single family to a 4-plex. And that's and that's the 2-unit development. So there's no owner occupancy requirement in that case. The urban lot split, I know.
It's complicated.
Which one is that one called? Because
The 2-unit development.
Can be converted to 4?
You know, I think when people, they've asked us, wait, so can we put 4 on this 1 unit? Possibly. It depends on, you know, obviously local setbacks.
Size of your lot.
The size of the lot, clearly, you know, some of the requirements for the lot sizes are very small where there's just no way you could possibly fit it in, and to think about setbacks, it makes no sense. But the second option, the urban lot split, that's allowing you to actually split the lot and sell the other piece, you know, really do whatever you want with that other piece. If you do an urban lot split, there is that 3-year owner occupancy requirement for
one of the four.
So, you know, in a case like that, the urban lot split, you might split a lot and build 2 single-family houses on each. You have 1 existing, you add 1, and you add 2 more on the other.
One thing that primary house, ADUs, junior ADUs, there's 3 types of houses that you, and the lot split is for primary houses. We're not talking about ADUs anymore. You can have an ADU, but we'll consider as a primary house on the 4. You follow me?
So
We're
each
not talking
of the
about
lots will have
ADUs,
a
it's
primary
4
and a
houses.
secondary.
Yes, exactly.
For-
So even, you know, I think one of the easiest ways to look at it is, even if ADUs did not exist, if you took all ADUs off the table, SB9 is really allowing you to build a second home on your property, or split your lot and build another home. And then, because ADUs are there, first of all, with ADUs came a lot of efficiencies in some of the prefabs and some of the construction and just knowledge and permitting around some of these smaller houses. But now it's also allowing, in a case like this, applying the ADU laws on top, or the SB9 on top of ADUs, it really increases the density. I mean, it's kind of it's really accelerated that.
Gives the cities more money though with the property taxes.
You know, it does. I think a lot of the city pushback, you know, has also come from homeowners saying, you know, NIMBY, YIMBY, no in my backyard, and you're increasing this density. SB9 is the end of single-family residential housing. You know, but like Raphael said with the ADUs and how it's really worked with cities, you know, filing lawsuits against the state for, you know, really violating the state constitution is the argument they've put up. And the state has created, I think this is correct, but I think it's the Housing Accountability Department now, with David Zisser that's running it. That really, this sole focus is going back after these cities that aren't allowing the state laws to
be enforced,
to be enforced.
The housing accountability laws go back to 1991.
Right.
So I've seen cases right now where that's the case being filed by people who are being denied, and they're winning left and right.
Right. I think, you know, Pasadena was a big example. I think Torrance, an example of what some of the cities are doing. You know, if they say, okay, the single family, the second primary home you're going to build in either of these cases, the 2-unit or the lot split, you know, it has to be at least 800 square feet. Well, I think what Torrance did was said, and it can't be any more than 800 square feet. You know, they're pinning you in this. You know, they're not giving you any flexibility of what to do. And that's where this Housing Accountability Department and David Zisser have really come in and said, hold on, that's not No, it has to be a minimum. You're not adding maximums, because in these laws, you're still following local building guidelines, zoning jurisdictions, setbacks. But as soon as the state starts changing those just to prevent the state laws, that's a problem.
If you have homeowners associations, you can't do any of this kind of stuff.
You can,
Yes, we can.
You can?
There's a,
Wow,
Absolutely.
because they're so strict.
You just,
the state created an amendment just to fight
Ah.
against the HO9.
HOAs.
Yeah,
HOAs.
The
'cause they're
same
pretty
thing when
strong.
HOAs refuse to put up dishes, the satellite dishes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Oh.
did a job, I'm doing a job in North Tustin, unincorporated area, under HO8. And it's just a one-page form that I submit with the plans, and they
Set it off.
sign off. Yeah, yeah, of course. Part of my job that I believe is, because we're adding value to a property, is to make the ADU looks like the house
Yeah.
in a way that the architectural concept still intact. Like basically, oh, this is an ADU. You can tell that by looking this angle or that angle. So it helps because HOA basically wants to keep the layout. So if you team up, if you think about your collaboration, you can have benefit.
These are almost
So,
like PUDs, I'm sorry, like a PUD where you share the same driveway and your individual little casitas, or whatever you want to call it, but you're sharing the same driveway like a PUD, because you don't have your own access to get to your home. Kind of, I don't know.
depending on the layout of the existing house,
Yeah.
in some cases.
So many terminologies.
In others, if there's access from the back,
Yeah.
depending where exactly this property falls, if you are doing a lot split, well, that's a completely separate entrance. If you're on a corner, it all depends, but in some cases, yes.
And that's why I never could repeat because I create a few models that I wanted to do it, and repeat, I never repeat.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some sort of customization, but it's okay, it's.
The corner lot model.
Yeah.
Alex,
How could, so
what about
complicated.
prefabs that the advertising now to put in your backyard?
Railroad cars.
So, first of all, there's a lot of those,
Seriously.
and we've been in touch. We've talked with a lot of them. I think you were just at the Abodu show in San Francisco. Yes, they can be used, and I think a lot of companies being prepared for the ADU laws came in before SB9, and all of them gearing up and getting the infrastructure and the capital and growing their businesses are in a perfect position for SB9. I think where it can get difficult is when you're trying to have this cohesive neighborhood, using some of these prefab. Yes, they're not mobile homes, but they're only mobile one time,
Yeah,
and then they're
manufactured
permanent.
homes.
Yes, but they
Manufactured
still look a certain way.
Different.
But I think a lot of the companies, especially ones we've talked to, are very open to customization and matching existing colors and exteriors.
Exteriors, yeah.
But you're not changing the pitch of it to match existing pitch. There's certain things that you can use those for, but you're also compromising, I think, the full development a little bit.
Can you work with those?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm two different personalities here, because as a developer, I like the idea to have the prefabs to add housing, and because the process is much easier. We're talking about lot splits that it's easier to match. You basically put 4 new houses on it.
They still need the foundation.
Yes,
And they
they
still need
the
connections
foundation.
for gas and water and electricity and
Right.
all of
Yeah, but as an old school builder, I can, first of all, there's a misconcept about modular. Oh, it's not a house, it's prefab, we're not adding value because of it. But those manufacturers, they're doing a great job. Year
Some
by
of them are
year.
incredible.
Incredible. You can tell that the difference. But I'm doing for a customer in Laguna Niguel, because we have this contact with those prefab companies. I'm putting the two options because the lot is difficult. I said, you can do stick build or you can do prefab. Prefab is gonna look different, of course, like Alice just mentioned. You don't have any construction except the grading and the foundation. It's 1 day installation. You don't have to deal with the problem of that, but it's gonna cost you more. Still more expensive, the prefab, than the stick build construction. Yes.
The cost that it's saving you is the time. That time especially, a lot of this I approach with this investor mindset where I'm like, well, what do I put in? What can I take out? And the time from basically beginning the permitting process, which a lot of these, modular, prefab, manufactured home companies they have that process down.
Yeah,
where, especially with certain cities.
It's because the state permit, not a city permit. It's manufactured in a
It's already
facility.
It's already gone through that process. Nothing's changing about this. So where something like that can really make sense from an investor standpoint is that time that it saves. You could, if they have the inventory, you could do something in 60 days from the time you decide to do it to the time you're renting it out. If you think of an 8 to 10 month.
Is longer?
Yeah, take time to get the permits to actually do the build.
You have to, first the permit process, hopefully from January 1st will be 60 days, hopefully, but still you have the construction, it's depending on the type of project, but you can go from 5 to 8 months building.
If anybody has watched that program on TV about tiny homes, the space utilization and the manufactured homes is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
They utilize space much better than a stick built.
Right.
Pushback.
I learned
This
to.
is where you'll hear the the investor and the builder, the contractor.
I build residential high rises, high density spec builds for ourselves, and I learned with my dad. Thank God he's in heaven. I learned with him how to put a lot of stuff in small spaces, and I think it's a plus for my contribution to my clients here is that I can do anyways. But I understand.
You must work with a lot of architects then, I would imagine, right? A lot of architects?
Yeah, the way I do is I have a lot of architects. Not a lot, a few, somewhat faster than the others. You can contact them directly. I just do a visibility study because of that to suggest the best size, number of bedrooms, because people think that the bigger the unit, more rental it's gonna collect, but it's not true. You have to check the rental market in that area, and sometimes it makes sense to do a smaller unit because the smaller unit is less dollars invest overall. It's more expensive per square feet, but less dollars overall. So the return on investment will be higher.
I would think
smaller.
a resale would be much better, like the traditional stick versus prefab. When you go, if you want to sell it, people want the solid home.
Some of these are
Very good.
very good.
Oh, really?
Some of them are, pretty
Really?
amazing.
Yeah,
We
being
went and watched
being
an install a
a
few weeks
stick
ago.
builder, the technology that they're changing, the prefabs are so nice that I start to think about adapt the primary house to the layout of the prefab. You know what I'm saying? Like especially these old stucco houses. If there's a siding, why don't you put a siding here and they match this? Because they're so good. I'm kidding, of course, but sometimes, okay, let's.
I guess earthquake proof and all that, they obviously.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So you mentioned about a 4-unit, we can do like 4-unit. So does that mean that we are not limited to 1,200 square feet ADU for the whole 4 units?
Again, the ADU laws, SB1069. Okay?
Okay.
ADUs. The lot split 4 units, it's SB9. That's a different law.
Okay.
So.
So if we don't split a lot, we can still build the 4 units. Yes? or
You
no?
can still get 4 units, but not four primary houses. You can get 2 primary houses and possibly an ADU and a junior ADU.
Oh, okay.
If in what I've handed out, there's this page with the diagrams, and some of our printing is thrown off, so things are on multiple pages. But if you look at this page, what we showed here is the minimum. I'm saying this is the minimum that you could do. This is just talking about primary houses. So ADUs could be added on top of each of these scenarios.
Okay, so we can do 2
if it
primary
can be
house
locally
and then
permitted.
2 ADU.
Possibly.
Okay.
I never want to say yes, you can,
Okay.
for sure.
But this is something to do
Possibly.
what we just discussed about if the city is friendly about this and you know, the density and that's why it's important. My advice to you, go straight to the source. We put together materials for you based on what we're doing, but for every new lot that we have, we go straight to the source. We talk with the city of Los Angeles where we're working with. We talk with people, we ask questions again and again and again, and to make sure we can do. And still, I help a client, an investor in San Clemente. He wanted to buy a property there, and there's a coastal exclusion there. I think I mentioned that before. There's a coastal exclusion, and when you see a coastal exclusion, it's nice because you don't have to go all through the process of a coastal community. And the guy bought the property to add the units, and end up that they require a coastal.
Yeah.
Out of a sudden, and we said, okay, but we met, we talked. No, but this and that and that and that and that. So it's part of the job, and is the risk.
With coastal exclusion, you cannot do that, or?
No,
it's
we have
only-
to go to a coastal commission
That's
hearing.
Takes 4 years.
It's a process goal.
Years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
it's like
No
root
worse
canal.
than an HOA.
It's like root canal.
That's a
So, yeah.
Oh, as far as cities, a lot of cities, I went to Fullerton after I found out about the SB9, and I talked to, went down to City Hall, and they asked nobody, talk to this guy, and nobody hardly knows about this SB9, because I have a lot in Raymond Hills up here in prime location, hasn't been sold for over 100 years, but it's 140 feet wide by 220 feet long.
Wow.
So I got basically a prime location up in the hills, so I'm thinking I could split it, put 2 houses on it, and add value to the sale.
Right.
But I can't get any feedback from Fullerton, because I keep calling them and they say, talk to this guy. I don't know about SB9, talk to this guy.
And welcome to the club.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can, have coffee or beers and go back and forth with those horror stories.
That's why I'm saying
for
that
hours.
this is the sequel of the movie. This is exactly what happened with ADUs 6 years ago.
They're
And
So,
yeah.
so do you have to go through different set of rule when you do the lot split versus you don't do the lot split?
Well, so there's provisions that apply to everything. What zone can you do these in? Single family residential. You can include R1, RA, I don't have all of them in front of me, but single family residential zones. Those apply to both. When you get down looking at each of them, there are some different requirements. So like I mentioned with the lot split, there's a 3-year owner occupancy requirement. Something else that might come up is if one of the units was built before, say you have a 2-unit property, if one of them was built before October 1st, 1978, it'll fall under the RSO, the rent stabilized ordinance. In that case, there's certain rules about altering or demolishing one of the existing units. So I'm saying the more you look at some of these, there are a lot of, it's not so much hurdles, but there's a lot of check boxes that you have to go through to make sure something is worth it.
So have any of you ever seen someone successfully split their lot so far?
This is interesting because I don't think we've had an update in the last couple of weeks, but as of, maybe this is even 6 weeks ago, let's say last month, the city of Los Angeles had not even received a completed application to split a lot yet. There have been 2 unit developments done, not splitting the lot, but splitting it, creating the new APN. It's not that one hadn't been approved. They hadn't even had a completed application for it yet, which just shows really how new it is too, but also think about who would be submitting an application to split a lot, because there's a 3-year owner occupancy. So it's really gonna be a homeowner. Homeowners aren't, they need to be educated on all of this. So the people that would be submitting those, you can understand there's a longer period of time it takes for them to get up to speed, understand, maybe a lender contacts them that, hey, here's possibilities. Or I think a lot of it is, on realtors and agents ourselves to speak with those homeowners and say, here are the options. Or small scale developers, single family neighborhood developers, like ourselves that can go in, and if we're gonna split it, we're happy to hold one of the units for 3 years.
And that's how I mentioned about the opportunities that we all about to see in the next few months, because there's a lot of new service to be provided to people that will need to move forward with that because of the Alex just said.
You said we partner. How does it work on that concept?
Yeah, if you're a homeowner, we're pretty much open to partner buying first, of course, or any sort of negotiation like have the second lot and build a unit for the homeowner, part of the payment, or we're open to, because we know the problem of the lack of knowledge. We're pursuing that, and it makes sense to us to do any type of partnership. But just 2 examples.
I think the easiest one to explain to a homeowner is really if they have, especially when we're talking about areas where we think these lot splits and even 2 unit developments make a lot of sense. We're really looking at kind of a median sale price in an area per square foot, and you compare that to market rent in an area for this type of product. And from that, you can see where you'll kind of get the biggest bang for the buck. But you also need a lot that's 20,000 square feet or 14,000 square feet, 12,000, depending on the layout, where we've really found that areas like Canoga Park, Winnetka, Reseda, Lou, you mentioned Chatsworth at one point, which, right on the border of Chatsworth, the market rent starts to go down, but that's another area that, makes a lot of sense, at least when you're not in more of the hills there. I lost my train of thought, but those are the areas where I think it really makes sense. It's not, in Venice or Beverly Hills, where I think a lot of people will say this, no, in my backyard. Well, we're not trying to double housing in certain areas. It's really in these areas
and also
that can use
this
it.
will depends the type of partnership. It depends on the type of the deal, the potential of the property, because there's some big lots, narrow lots, that you put one house, there will be a back house and a front house. It's not for marketing purpose ideal. Ideal if you have a wider lot to put 2 front lots, right? So
like your property.
Depending on the potential, what the lot, the property can offer.
But that I want to just touch back on the partnership opportunity. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
In an area where we've seen homes that are 1,000 square feet on a 20,000 square foot lot, and the owner might be looking to sell this property, which is great. But I think a realtor could go to them and say, hold on a second, there's an opportunity here to just sell half. You don't want this huge lot, but sell half, and in exchange, if we were to partner with the homeowner in that case, we could build them a guest house out of our pocket, free. That's on us in exchange for 8,000 square feet of their property. So it's a way for somebody to stay where they are. They're not forced to sell this big property, get a guest house and another stream of income that'll cash flow with the existing mortgage, and they'd give up a piece of that property. That's kind of the clearest way to kind of explain it to a homeowner, or a homeowner that's looking to just buy a single family house, and there happens to be you know, a lot that is 20,000 square feet. Well, there might be an opportunity to you know, create a new entity and go in on this together, because we'll take half of it.
So,
What about the cost of doing the ADU, construction cost, average? I'm not asking exact dollar, but range, roughly what's going on.
Yeah.
It depends on
About
there's
50% of the prefab.
Yeah, no, this basically depends on the size. Like I said, the bigger, less expensive per
That's
square
800
foot.
square feet something.
You can go
know.
from $250 to $400, and finishings, like if you decided to do. Most of my clients that do guest house, they want the house to be nicer because they're gonna use it. Most of my clients do as a business to rent it out. They lower the fixtures, more durable, cheaper. So you can, but I think 250 to 400 is a big range, I know, but that's basically what it comes to.
And some city, what if you build a guest house and you wanna use it for Airbnb, and then you find out the city doesn't allow Airbnb? Where is that? right?
First of all, the law says that it's not allowed short-term.
Short-term rentals.
This is to provide housing for people to live.
Okay.
But I know that a lot of people, based on the demand, especially some vacation cities, vacation spots, they require permissions to do that.
So you mentioned a lot of you mentioned a lot of cities on the coastal side. How about the more inland area? Open to the
Yeah,
city?
I mean, I think as long as it doesn't fall, and I think I've included it in here, as long as it doesn't fall
In fact, that's what I was gonna point out to.
in one of these
I've
areas.
been following ADU since it got started in 2017. And as a professional realtor here, I really thank you for putting this together.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Because
interesting.
we all talking about ADUs, but we have no idea what ADUs are and the restrictions and all that. And this page that you're referring to, everybody, it says where you can build and where you cannot build. A lot of areas right here in this area, Orange County, are high and very high fire severity zones. You cannot build an ADU there. Also, a lot of them are along earthquake fault lines.
Right.
Cannot build there. Areas of high landslide, liquefaction, as well as FEMA 1% annual 100-year floods. Those are a lot of areas in Orange County are affected by these four items.
Right.
You
So
mentioned,
what I can add to your bit about high fire zones is the Cal Fire in California has a website. It's free to go on there. You can put an APN in there, or you can put a street address, and it maps the property to determine what type of fire zones is in.
Yeah.
And it's pretty darn good, because I had a client looking up buying and doing stuff, and I said, you can't do that house. And I said, why? He said, you are in a high fire zone. Now, if we find something across the street,
Yeah.
we can do it.
The NHD reports have those. All of these are in the NHD reports. The National
but he's
Hazard-
talking about pre-NHD.
You
Yeah.
don't wanna spend the money,
And
$100 on an NHD report, but you wanna be able to look at things in advance.
There's also sites where you can find out if you're anywhere near an earthquake zone.
Yeah.
Earthquake fault.
Oh, and by the way, earthquake faults, and this happened last year, there's two sets of earthquake maps. There's the USGS maps, and then there's the Cal geological maps. The California maps are worse than the USGS maps.
Of course,
California includes wider areas of impact.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So just,
And obviously there's exceptions, you know, but it's not, you know, even in the SB9, the actual bill text, I think if you go into that and you know, control F, search for flood zone, I don't think you'll find it in the document. You know, there's things like and it has to comply with code 7/4, and you look that up and it's, okay, this is all about flood zone. So there's still things buried within there, and there's exceptions, but exceptions are always, you know, they're exceptions, they're not.
Would you guys be willing to come out to our offices and talk about this?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's
You
absolutely
mentioned
cool.
something about, pre-1978, the rent stabilization ordinance.
Yeah.
Does that apply to everybody or just the city of Los Angeles?
Good question.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I will find out and get back to you.
I think it's just for the city of LA. I
It
don't
might,
know.
it might be. I have a feeling you're right. You know, and I've really just been focused on LA.
City of LA.
You know, what I put together here, there is some information that's coming from the city of LA, but I've really just given what is the SB9, the state law. So cities may have different things. LA is considered a, you know, I think they received a B+ on ADU, you know, yeah, they're kind of, they get graded on this scale of how friendly is LA to accepting ADUs, and they're pretty high on the list. But everything I've given is really just at a state level, so it's not applying to any specific city, except what I've mentioned out loud about RSO.
So you're a one-stop, I wanna build an ADU on my property, I have no idea what I want or anything, and you do the whole thing. You counsel with us and,
Can't take you anywhere.
get the permits and the build and everything.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
be happy to take a look at and show the possibilities.
What if I have plans drawn up already by an architect?
It's okay.
That you would take it from that way?
Plus home, with two different companies, plus home.
Yeah, that's something to give you an idea what he's saying. You know, he's had, you know, he's been a contractor out here, he's been doing this for clients. Something like that is more, if you're just looking to get an ADU built, that's more, you know, plus home builds.
The construction part of our business is plus home, and the development is HO9.
Yeah. And Rafael is a property manager who manages rentals. You don't want to say cheaper fixtures, you want to say more sustainable.
Okay. No, and it's important, Louis, because when you choose a roof, you have a 10-year warranty roof, 5-year, 15-year, the price change. And if you talking about property management,
You
you
have to figure
want it to last.
Cost versus
Yes.
how many years it's guaranteed.
Thanks.
Yes.
You know, I think one thing, and Kathy, I'm glad you mentioned, you know, about is that LA or also Orange County. LA has put out now this fact sheet, you know, on SB9 that has a lot of questions and answers, and it's good. I mean, it's great. I didn't hand this out today just because it is only LA, but it's worth looking up Orange County SB9 Q&A or fact sheets and looking, because it is all different, but they go into such detail in these, you know, about everything that can or can't be done, or background, or, you know, how will this affect things, that it's very useful.
And a few important things we want to share. First of all, as a professor, I learned that most of the housing development follow the same path in cities all over the world. Basically, the big city dictate the trends, what's going on next to it. So I think the Los Angeles case is super good for us to understand what's going to happen next here. So I encourage you to pay attention to what's going on there. Also, this law, we copied this law from Canada, Vancouver. And right now, and the law is coming south, like starting in Vancouver, and then
Washington.
Oregon, Washington, California. In Vancouver, now 35% of the single-family houses has an ADU, 35%. In California, 1% of single-family homes has an ADU. If we follow that path, we're going to have in the next decades over 300,000 ADUs just in Orange County. Why I'm sharing this with you? Because today it's difficult to compare. There will be a different type of house here among us, and today it's difficult to compare value, potential, market value. But the more time we go, easier, and the sooner you guys start to advise your customers why don't you buy in this property instead of buy this? Because this, even if you don't do anything right now, you have the chance in the future to do it. It's more valuable. So, and imagine if you don't say this to your customer and he buy the property with less potential. They're gonna blame you forever for not sharing that information.
Plus, a lot of children today can't buy a house. Young, a lot of people who making $100,000 a year can't buy a house because so they could build a house next door. The parents could, or they could, and they could share it. That would be my sales pitch. Obviously.
And there's a lot of, I think, a lot of the ADUs are used for the generational living. I think, and that's as ADU stand. I think with SB9, it's only increased that possibility even more. Especially if you have this lot and you split it, but you've got a separate APM, but you're keeping it within the family, and just creating an option that well, we can sell these separately someday. We don't have to sell these as a package deal. And I think the state has looked at this and thought we can just through SB9. And their studies are always changing, but we can add up to 1 million new housing units, which is insane. And Rafael and I, where we've thought about this is, there's obviously this business side to it, but increasing housing, making housing more affordable, having rent that's not ridiculous. This is where we really believe, you can have this capitalist mindset and do the right thing, that those things can coexist, and it's not one or the other. Like I think a lot of people can get polarized looking at, that we really believe we can increase the housing by making a business out of this.
And good luck trying to collect rent from your kids.
I agree with you, but I'll tell you one of the, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna ask you, so, also what was I gonna say, I got sidetracked, but anyway, so, as far as is there any financing available on ADUs?
Well, I think what a lot of people have used for ADUs is a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. Yeah, and so, and you're seeing, those numbers were going up crazy in the last, I think you had shared at a couple meetings about it too. But I think with where rates are now, you're seeing some of that slow down. A lot of these manufactured home and prefab ADU companies are starting to offer their own financing options now because they've had enough, there's enough case studies that they've seen play out where it cash flows for them.
Oh, yeah.
But there are options, but right now, I mean, when we're looking at creative financing strategies too, it's not a super easy time to finance things.
Right, you have a private investor do it, maybe.
Right.
They'll get a better rate of return.
Just a few numbers real quick. 500 square feet ADU attached, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, Huntington Beach, $2,300 a month.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 23.
In
Fullerton above garage, 600 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a balcony. You can see the Disneyland fireworks from the balcony, $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, over in Irvine and also Anaheim and all these areas, they're building those high-rise apartments. They're $3,500 a month for 2 bedrooms now.
Yeah, and the more expensive per square feet makes more sense because the construction cost will be. I'm gonna build with my crew if I go to Anaheim, if I go to Huntington Beach, so my cost is gonna be the same. But if the rental market in your area is more expensive than the other, then you have better return on
When
investment.
you're having your first consultation with a new client, a potential client, do they often ask about the tax ramifications, income tax at all, or what do you say when they do ask?
Sorry,
Okay, I'm looking at putting an ADU on my property. I've got the HELOC lined up, I'm ready to, invest. And I'm asking you, what about my income tax?
Or you mean property tax or income tax?
No, I'm talking about income tax.
Okay.
I'm an income tax expert, so I that's what I do.
Whatever you get in income, you gotta pay tax on.
I've had one client out of hundreds has come to me before they started the ADU and said, what's gonna happen to my income tax? I just wondered, because a lot of people make decisions and don't think about the taxes till April.
again, it's not my field, I
She's the
provide
best,
all.
by the way, accounting.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Tax attorney.
I provide, a few weeks ago, I provide all the information. They asked me for the project, cost, breakdown, plans, everything. But what I heard that when you rent your unit, you can transform, you can divide your property into, because there's a business, you can convert
It's a rental.
into a business.
Mhm.
And you create an imaginary line in your property that you say that part of my property is my business and that part is my
You wouldn't
house.
do that if you have a HELOC.
And
loan.
you can write off the expenses from your business, and this will affect your income.
You wouldn't do that if you have a HELOC, because a HELOC is not, the interest on your HELOC is not tax deductible unless it's used for improving your home. So I'm gonna have to look and see if an ADU would be considered improving your
No,
home.
and I'm the one that definitely wanna know the answer, because
So,
I think there's a lot of, you know,
Right.
if we went around the room, everybody could come up with 10 scenarios where there's questions around it. You know, like that, how's it affect the income with the home equity line of credit? There's tens of thousands, maybe millions of permutations of each situation.
And that's
it's-
why I think there's opportunity there, because
So my
once
suggestion
you
is-
focus on the niche that you're gonna help people to do a specific service,
Absolutely. Yeah.
everybody
So
comes
my
to you.
suggestion to
Yes.
you is
So there is
ask
a-
them, have you thought about what that's gonna do for your taxes? Because some people need to be reminded to think about that. When you make a major decision, anything with a comma in it, you
Right.
need to think about what it's gonna do to your taxes.
And when they ask us, well, who can we talk to? Can we get one of your business cards?
Yes, you need to take her.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I don't know.
there's a 40,000 grant available for ADU.
Everybody should take.
What, how does
Do
it
they
work?
reassess the property?
To work with tax attorneys too.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
40,000 grant available for building ADU. What is that? How does it work? Or do you know about that?
I think
The
one of the best
grants?
I've
The
ever
grant,
seen.
the
For
40,000
ADU.
grant for ADU.
Yeah, I don't know as much about it, you know, I think we're attending, there's a meeting next week with Casita Coalition, where they've been the ones that have really been on top of following, you know, this grant process to a T. I mean, that group is amazing. And I think next week, there's gonna be even more clarification.
What I encourage you to do, send me an email with the same question, and I forward to the people that know how to navigate with that.
Other question, let's say, as a owner of, primary owner, right, you doing all the lots and everything, right, you do while you're living and 3-year restriction there. But let's say after you're done, tomorrow decide, I wanna sell the property. So when you sell the property, you have to put the restriction on that, right? Is it that has to be owner?
Yeah, it's a good question, yeah.
You know, I think that I think you're limited from doing anything for 3 years. Just because at least I talked this over with lenders, and I'll clarify, we'll add that to the list we get back to you
Yeah,
on.
because situation changed, right?
Well,
Yeah.
even transferring title on it, I mean, selling it to an LLC, selling it to your business partner, I'm saying, I think they've tried to plug every hole where they've said, you know, we really only want homeowners that are gonna do this, not just sell it to themselves and get around this 3-year owner occupancy. So I think they've plugged a lot of those gaps, as they should, because I think as much as I think a 3-year owner occupancy, it's more difficult for our business. It keeps a lot of people from coming, throwing density, and you know, I think JP Morgan owned 40% of single-family residential rentals in Atlanta, and we don't, you know, that's not what we don't need that in California.
I mean, Jamie Dimon owns all that?
Yeah, exactly.
So some things that you may wanna consider when you're talking about this stuff with like the lot splitting SB9.
Yeah.
I'm gonna suggest that all of you look at the Housing Affordability Act, and what's required under that is each city and each municipality or jurisdiction in California is required to submit a housing plan to the state of California and amend it every 10 years to see what they're short in units. So if you're gonna do a lot split, that's a piece of ammunition for you guys to go back to the city and says, no, well, wait a minute, your plan says this, and you're not complying with your plan. I'm here to just help you comply with a teeny tiny part of your plan. So, I mean, it's and I'm running into this in lots of land I'm selling for development in the quote, the new Mojave River Valley, which is the high desert. They've changing their names because of the connotations. But I'm running into cities who have plans, they have the stuff published, and then I said, my buyer wants to do this, and you said you could do this, and then you're saying no. Excuse me, these things don't match up. And it's forcing them to rethink what they're doing. So I mean,
they want to keep this from being something that speculators take over.
Right,
They want homeowners to benefit from this.
Yeah, and I think in you know, the discussions I've had, at least with city planning, lenders, title companies, the goal of this is to increase housing. But they don't want to, you know, start rolling this ball in a direction where it's really taken advantage of. So to protect that from especially institutional speculative.
I always tell clients when they ask about tax ramifications, I said, the tax assessor is to collect taxes. The income tax people are to collect income taxes. Trust me, they'll find a way to collect it.
Yeah, that's the IRS's job, that's what they get paid to do.
Well,
but
franchise tax board is
they're
worse than the
humans.
IRS.
Yes.
And, yes, they are, yes.
You know, when people ask me about tax ramifications, I tell them to check with their CPA, because we're not supposed to give any kind of
Exactly,
information. You know?
exactly, my point is, remind them to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because they don't think about it at the
Before they
time.
take any property action.
Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, are we planning on going through our sheet today?
No.